Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reviews, where today I'm going to be listening through, reviewing and ranking 4 different short form pieces of music that have been sent through to me by VT. So if we switch over to here, we've got a blank screen now. VT is wanting me to listen through each of these 4 sort of songs. They're like 30 to 45 seconds. And my job is basically to figure out 2 things. One, I got to figure out which 2 of them has been made by an AI and which 2 of them has been made by a human. There's a total of 4. Secondly, as I mentioned, I got to sort of rank them in order of preference while sort of commenting on reviewing them. So we're going to listen through each of these tracks from start to finish. And we're going to hear what we think. Here we go, starting with track 1. I reckon that's AI. Although I'm also kind of stumped because my understanding of how AI is involved in music, does it extend to the positioning of the different notes in the frequency spectrum, in the stereo field? How does that work, right? Because I really enjoyed that kind of synthy orchestral kind of vibe to that. It sounded sort of cyberpunk-esque, with the basses, the distorted sort of mutilated strings there. The sequencer, that's that sort of idea that was brought in initially, and those little kind of flutes there. I think it might be an AI because they all sounded like they were synths trying to be sort of orchestral instruments. Like I think those were trying to be flutes, and I'm also thinking, is it that a machine can just be like? Do they not think about it like we do? I know this is kind of trippy to think about. Does AI not think about it like we do, where I'm like, oh, I want to extend by panning the audio to the sides, like the positioning of it in the stereo field? Is it just painting a picture just the way, like how much freedom do they have? So I'm going to give that one there. Probably, I think overall I'm going to give that one an 8.5. I think it was really intriguing compositionally. I thought they did a fantastic job with layering things out, developing when needed be. There are a few awkward stutters, but apart from that, it was very, very good. This sounds a little bit too random. I'm wondering if this is AI. Because I think a lot of people, when they produce music, will always put something on the first beat. To me, this sounds kind of like a robot's trying to figure it out because of the fact we're putting that kind of accent on the third. Nah, hang on, no, actually. I'm actually wondering if the track first one is human and track 2 is AI. How would I feel that second track, the second music, it had individually cool ideas and they were within a similar key signature. Although there was a sense of randomness and quirkiness to it, it's like someone making a piece of music for the first time and kind of going through the notes they're allowed to use, just kind of stabbing at where they're meant to go and how they harmonize. I think the lack of development here is simply kind of making this more of an aesthetic, which is something I think an AI could do. I think like a computer could go, oh, I think that this instrument sounds good with this, and this is what I find a lot of in this music. Like, I think an AI could figure out commonalities between various instruments and certain genres and stick them together, figure out how to put them within a key signature, and then make them shine. I don't know what the whispers on the side were, though. They were very sort of uncertain. I'm not sure why those were specifically panned so far to the side, which is also part of why I think it was AI generated. It just seems a little... I would give that a... Overall, I think it's a 7. It's just I'd give it a higher score if I knew it could develop. It just didn't. It just stayed with that sort of one main sort of concept and never rotated from that. But try music number 3. Hang on. If there's going to be a human building this up, there's going to be something happening in this next bit. Nah, definitely a human being made that. Definitely. Unless, of course, I'm being sort of... Unless there is a shenanigans afoot and all of this is AI generated and it's just different AIs making different types of music. Maybe the instructions you can give are a bit more sort of like focused and you can get more ideal results if you add more conditions to what they're trying to make. I'm not sure. Like you could probably say to an AI, put it at like this tempo, include like specifically chords that are aligned with the root notes, or that like hover around the percussions and roll with the triads. That there was more sort of traditional to me in a sense. I think a human made it simply because I think it's just in the commercial grade stuff, it's so common to know, hey, we have groups of 4 or 8 bars, boom, we have a new thing. And it just flowed and there's this wonderful fluctuation. There was less of a sense of awkward kind of meandering in the dark with the way that various melodies and harmonies came together. And just ultimately, I think that it wasn't a super complicated composition by any mean, but it didn't need to be when you're starting it out. Similar to how the first track was done, you add building eventually. Whereas the second track, as I've said, is just one sort of... That's the main differentiator is what I'm trying to say. We got music number 4. That was weird at the end. I think that gave it away. Why was that weird at the end? Man, if that was AI generated, there was some weirdness in the low end of sub resonances. I think a lot of like human producers would be uncomfortable with that amount of resonance in that low end. Like that's a lot of bass. These headphones, they don't put through a lot of bass. So for me to be feeling that lower bass resonance, like I'm gonna go with track 4 being AI. I would give that a 7. I like that. I know that what I said before, track 2 was there wasn't as much instrumental development. Like we didn't have more stuff being added as we went along. With that one, yeah, there was stuff added as we went along and various adjustment shifts. So I don't think that's a determining factor now of whether or not it is AI. They've managed to figure out how to get it to sort of stage linearly, I suppose, with the idea of a bell curve and more sort of direct programming or instructions that can be done. Within that effect, I think that the second idea was definitely AI, and I think that track 4 was AI. We're going to do a conclusion in a moment. I'm not sure about my choices. Welcome to the conclusion of my review ranking of these 4 tracks that I have been doing for VT. Now, this is a different video today, and it's really making me question my understanding of AI music, because all 4 of these ideas, providing the premise is correct that there are 2 AI and 2 human, there are sound compositions. I don't think there's any real weak points in them aside from that kind of wacky kind of at the end of that last one, or the lack of compositional development in the second idea. I know that like a lot of hip hop and rap, for example, and this isn't all of it, but like a lot of it revolves around one idea and you just take away or bring back things. So that's a situation where a human producer is maybe oversimplifying things to a detriment for the listener potentially, but arguably, of course. But ultimately, aside from that, there's just a bit of squashing in some frequency spectrums there that sort of sounded a little bit kind of uncomfortable. But then I got a little bit of that in track 1 as well. I thought that track 1 was a human, because when I compared it to, I initially thought I was a robot, and it was because of the sounds of the instruments, right? But then I listened to track 2 and I was like, no, this one sounds a bit quirky. The synths sound a bit like kind of unusual or uncertain. Oh man, imagine if track number 2 was human and track number 1 was AI. If I was to give a ranking, I think that the first track would be number 1. I simply preferred the overall theme more to it. I liked the bombastic sort of nature to it. I like that kind of darker feel to it, the moodiness with it, with the minor sort of like, if we play it a little bit here, it sounds like a movie soundtrack. You know what I mean? It's very sort of like cinematic and very kind of overbearing and dramatic there, and it kind of just weighs you down. Track number 2, it just sounds a little bit too random with the sort of the whooshing in the ears. Like the synth sequence apart, it's catchy, but it doesn't really sort of find a place to sit and sort of belong. And the other elements within it, there were pads or basses or whatever, yeah, sure, they sound okay texture tonally, but it's like if someone just putting random textures together that they know will fit well, but it doesn't really feel like. I'd have to listen to the start of the track, if that makes sense. To really, if that's how the track starts so bluntly, I think that's kind of what I liked about track 1 and track 3. Because if we play track 3 here. Actually, hang on, is track 4 human? Nah, because why could that not have been made with an AI though? Like, man, VT, if you're watching this, you have made me question everything. I think the biggest thing I've learned from this is that this kind of sounds like music you'd hear on like a Kickstarter ad or something like that. It's very kind of palatable, it's inoffensive, it's bright, it's fresh with filter work and stuff like that. But when's it going to get to the stage where a computer couldn't figure out that that's what people like and make it formulaic and then make it what it is? The third one, it sounds human because I think it sounds like something that like a marketing agency would make for like a product they will launch or something like that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory or kind of crappy way. What I mean is it just sounds relatively neutral sounding or inoffensive. Yeah, track 4. Now, I'm not sure why we had the delay there. I'm definitely sticking with 2 and 4 as AI and track 1 to 3 is human. If I look at it from a more sort of traditional basis of like a contemporary review, there is nothing sort of compositionally wrong with these. There's no obvious flaws or mistakes or errors. The performances are tight-knit, very well calculated throughout. There is development in tracks 1, 3, and 4 there, which is something that you need to in order to keep listeners engaged and interested. I think, if anything, just the weird sound at the end of the track 4 kind of gave it away, because why would you have that kind of buzz at the end of a piece? It kind of sounds like the computer had a hiccup. I think 2 and 4 kind of sound like in certain parts they're trying to calculate what an instrument sound like in order for it to exist, and then putting that forward as what we think is going to be acceptable. And again, it'll get to a point where like a robot or like an AI will just be able to go, hey, let's just make that sound, and we'll believe it. And it's probably already happening, man. The tracks were typically, like well leveled and nice and wide and stereo filled, and things were well niched in the frequency spectrum apart from the sub-resonant frequencies I mentioned. There was dynamic range to them, especially the first and the third. The second and fourth were a bit tighter, which made them seem a little bit more sort of similar, and that's also another thing I was kind of suspicious of. Usually you try to have a little bit of sort of like air and variety to the loudnesses of things within a track in order to keep it interesting for listeners. But they were still nice and loud without pumping, so the bus compression limiting when handled. And does an AI even do that? Like, how much does an AI do? Does it produce the music and then we mix and master it? Does the AI do it themselves? When you get a track from AI, is it the separate stems, or is it everything sort of amalgamated together? But thank you very much for watching this video of my review of these 4 songs, me figuring out if they're AI or not, and ranking them in order of preference. Hopefully you enjoyed them. Keep an eye out for more AI generated music because the technology is growing and it's in quite an interesting place. Stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians at this point in time. It's either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on. Let me know what ones you thought were AI or human and what you'd give them out of 10, and I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.